When we talk about habits, most people immediately think of action, waking up early, exercising, reading, journaling, or meditating. But let me tell you something that often gets overlooked. A habit without clarity is just movement without direction. It may feel productive, but if you haven't decided where you're actually going, then your discipline can become nothing more than well-organized chaos. Before you try to stack routines or perfect your schedule, you must first confront the deeper question: what am I truly moving toward? Without that clarity, even the most disciplined person can climb the wrong ladder, only to realize too late that it was leaning against the wrong wall. Clarity is what gives order to your habits. Think of it like a compass. If your habits are the steps you take every day, then clarity is the orientation that ensures those steps are leading somewhere meaningful. A person can work tirelessly, but unless the work is ordered by a vision, it becomes circular. And many people live exactly this way: busy, but not purposeful, active, but not directed. Success does not come from being busy. It comes from being aligned. Psychologically, this matters more than we realize. Our brain craves patterns, but it also craves meaning. When a habit is tied to something bigger, a purpose, a mission, a vision of the life you want, it gains emotional weight. It is no longer just a routine. It becomes an expression of identity, and this is what makes it sustainable. Anyone can wake up at 5 a.m. for a week, but only someone with clarity about why they are doing it can sustain it for years. Philosophically, clarity also demands honesty. You cannot order your habits effectively if you are lying to yourself about what you want. Too often, we inherit goals from society, from peers, from culture, and then we build habits to chase them without ever asking if they truly belong to us. And so we end up with disciplined people living unfulfilled lives simply because they never stop to ask, does this matter to me? Or am I pursuing it because it looks impressive to others? To order your habits for success, you must first order your desires, separating the essential from the trivial, the authentic from the borrowed. Once that clarity is in place, the ordering of habits becomes almost effortless. You suddenly know which ones to prioritize because they resonate with your vision. You know which ones to drop because they no longer serve you, and you gain the courage to say no to distractions, not out of discipline alone, but because they simply don't align. Clarity is the seed from which order grows. Without it, habits scatter like loose stones on the ground. With it, they align like bricks in a wall, forming a structure strong enough to support the life you're building. So before you obsess over the how of your habits, pause and confront the why. Because if you can see the destination clearly, every step you take will carry more weight, more focus, and more power. And that is where success begins. Once clarity is established, the next step is ordering habits by priority. And this is where most people stumble. They treat all habits as equal, as if every routine deserves the same weight, the same attention, the same urgency. But that is not how success works. Some habits are foundational. They set the tone, they build the structure, they influence everything else. Others are supportive, secondary, even optional. If you fail to distinguish between them, you end up giving your energy to the trivial while neglecting the essential. And that disorder quietly sabotages progress. Think about it this way: if you try to water every plant in a garden equally without noticing which ones are bearing fruit, you may end up wasting effort on weeds while starving the roots that actually feed you. Life is no different. The habits that determine your health, your focus, your energy, and your discipline are not just routines, they are leverage points. They multiply your effectiveness across all areas. But too often, people bury them under a pile of minor activities, convincing themselves that being busy equals being productive. The truth is, business without order is simply distraction in disguise. Psychologically, this comes down to a principle known as leverage. Certain actions have disproportionate influence over the rest of your life. For example, a consistent sleep routine does not only give you rest, it sharpens your mind, regulates your emotions, and strengthens your resilience. The same goes for exercise or deep work or intentional learning. These habits are multipliers, and when you put them first, they make every other habit easier to maintain. Without them, even the smaller routines begin to crumble because the foundation is missing. Philosophically, it is also a matter of discernment. Wisdom has always been about knowing not just what to do, but what to do first. When you order your habits by priority, you're making a statement about what governs your life. You're saying, this is the anchor, this is the non-negotiable, and everything else must orbit around it. And the discipline to hold that line, to choose the vital over the trivial, is one of the rarest but most powerful traits a person can develop. So when you think about your habits, don't just ask, are they good or bad? Ask instead, what is their weight? What is their reach? What is their influence on the rest of my life? Because success is not built by scattering effort across a dozen routines. It's built by securing the few that matter most and letting them organize the rest. The truth is, your life will always reflect the order of your habits. If the foundational ones are weak, everything on top eventually collapses. But if the core is strong, even the secondary habits find their natural place. Prioritization is not just about efficiency, it is about integrity, about living in alignment with what carries the deepest value. Remember this: you do not rise to the level of every habit, you rise, or fall, to the order in which they are placed. Put first things first, and success will quietly assemble itself around you. Once you have clarity and you know what to prioritize, the next challenge is resisting the temptation to rely on intensity alone. Most people, when they get motivated, rush into their habits with an explosion of energy. They go to the gym every day for a week, they wake up at 4 a.m. for 3 days straight, they meditate for an hour on Monday, and by Friday they're exhausted, drained, and slipping back into their old patterns. The mistake is simple: they believe success was about how intensely they could act in a short burst, rather than how consistently they could sustain over the long stretch. The truth is, success is built on rhythm. Rhythm is the steady beat that keeps you moving even when the excitement fades. Intensity can start the fire, but rhythm is what keeps it burning. You can think of it like music. A song does not live in a single loud note, but in the steady pattern that carries it forward. In the same way, your habits cannot depend on sudden peaks of energy. They need to be ordered into a rhythm that becomes natural, almost effortless over time. Psychologically, this is crucial. The human brain resists extremes, it craves balance. When we push ourselves with too much intensity, we trigger resistance and burnout. But when we create rhythm, our brain learns to anticipate the action, making it easier to repeat without constant willpower. That's why brushing your teeth feels effortless. You've tied it to a rhythm of daily living. Now imagine if you could give that same rhythmic quality to the habits that shape your success: reading, exercising, journaling, creating, learning. When they become part of your daily beat, they no longer drain you, they sustain you. Philosophically, rhythm is also harmony. Ancient thinkers understood that order is not about rigidity, but about flow. Life itself moves in rhythms: the rising and setting of the sun, the tides, the seasons, the cycles of growth and rest. When your habits align with rhythm, you're not fighting against nature, you're working with it. And that is why ordered habits are sustainable. They respect the natural cadence of human life. This is also why rhythm is more powerful than intensity, because intensity isolates you to moments, while rhythm integrates you into a lifestyle. Anyone can do something once with great force. The question is whether you can do it daily with quiet discipline. And when you can, success stops feeling like a chase and starts feeling like a natural unfolding. So don't ask yourself, how hard can I push today? Ask instead, what rhythm can I sustain this week, this month, this year? Because success is not about the fire of a moment. It is about the quiet persistence of a rhythm. And remember this: intensity may impress people in the short term, but rhythm builds a life that speaks for itself. Now let's go deeper, because even clarity, priority, and rhythm will collapse if they are not rooted in identity. Too many people try to force habits onto themselves while secretly holding a self-image that contradicts those very behaviors. They tell themselves, I will become disciplined, but deep down they still see themselves as lazy. They say, I will start living healthy, but inside they still carry the identity of someone who breaks promises to themselves. And here lies the hidden truth. You cannot consistently act against who you believe yourself to be. Identity always wins. This is why ordering your habits must begin with ordering your identity. If you see yourself as disciplined, you will naturally make disciplined choices. If you see yourself as resilient, setbacks become challenges instead of excuses. Habits, then, are not just external routines, they are mirrors reflecting the story you tell about yourself. Change the story, and the habits begin to align with it almost automatically. Psychologically, this is powerful because human behavior is driven by congruence. We all have a deep desire to remain consistent with our self-image. If I believe I am an honest person, lying becomes painful. If I believe I am a writer, not writing feels unnatural. This is why trying to build habits without reshaping identity is so exhausting. You are swimming upstream against the current of who you believe you are. But once identity shifts, the current starts carrying you instead. Philosophically, this comes back to the age-old question of essence and action. Do we act because we are, or are we because we act? The truth is both feed one another, but identity is the anchor. Ancient wisdom taught that character, your inner essence, is the soil and your actions are the fruit. If the soil is poor, the fruit will wither no matter how much effort you put into forcing it. But if the soil is rich, the fruit grows naturally. In the same way, when you cultivate an identity that matches your vision, your habits stop feeling like chores and start feeling like natural expressions of who you already are. This is also why affirmations and vision work are not just motivational gimmicks. When done with sincerity, they are tools for reshaping identity. Every time you declare, "I am the kind of person who keeps promises to myself," and then prove it with even the smallest action, you reinforce a new self-image. Over time, that identity becomes unshakable, and with it, your habits stabilize. So instead of only asking, "What do I want to do?" ask, "Who do I want to be?" Because when you answer that honestly, the ordering of your habits becomes clear. They no longer exist in isolation, they become threads woven into the fabric of your identity. And here is the truth worth remembering: action may build momentum, but identity builds destiny. Even when clarity is strong, priorities are set, rhythm is established, and identity is aligned, there remains one silent enemy that can quietly dismantle everything: distraction. And this is why guardrails are essential. You see, habits do not exist in a vacuum. They live within an environment. And if that environment is cluttered, noisy, or filled with temptations pulling at your attention, even the best ordered habits can collapse under the weight of interruption. We live in a world designed to steal focus. Every notification, every advertisement, every endless scroll on a screen is competing for the very resource that builds habits: your attention. And attention, once scattered, weakens discipline. Think of it like this: your mind is a river, and your habits are built on the flow of that river. If the current is split into dozens of smaller streams, the force is lost. But if it is channeled and protected, its power becomes unstoppable. Guardrails are what keep that current strong. Psychologically, this is not about willpower alone, it's about structure. Research shows that human beings overestimate their ability to resist temptation. We assume we can scroll for just a minute, or that we can keep our phone nearby without checking it. But the truth is, the brain is highly suggestible. Exposure is half the battle. Guardrails, then, are not signs of weakness, they are acts of wisdom. They reduce the need for constant decision-making by removing friction and eliminating unnecessary battles. Philosophically, this is a matter of discipline versus freedom. Many assume freedom is the absence of limits, but in reality, true freedom comes from ordering your life so that you are not enslaved by impulse. Guardrails are not restrictions, they are enablers. They protect the space where your best self can thrive. Just as a river needs banks to keep its flow directed, your habits need boundaries to keep them from dissipating into noise. This could mean designing your environment intentionally, placing healthy foods where you can see them, keeping books within reach, leaving your phone outside your workspace, or structuring your mornings to be free from digital chaos. Every guardrail you build is a way of saying, "I value my focus too much to waste it." And when those guardrails are consistent, they turn distraction from a constant battle into a minor inconvenience. What's important to remember is this: guardrails are not about saying no to everything, they are about saying yes to what matters most. Without them, even the strongest identity will eventually weaken under constant interruption. With them, your ordered habits remain protected, nurtured, and sustained. So do not simply ask, "What habits do I want to build?" Ask also, "What guardrails will protect them?" Because the world will always be noisy, but you decide how much of that noise enters your life. And here is the truth worth carrying with you: success is not just about what you practice, it is about what you protect. The final piece in ordering your habits for success is understanding the quiet but unstoppable power of compounding. Most people overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a decade. They want immediate transformation, so they chase dramatic changes. But the truth is, greatness is rarely born from a single breakthrough. It is built from the compounding effect of small, consistent habits integrated into a system that strengthens itself over time. Think of compounding like interest in a bank account. A single deposit may seem small, even insignificant. But with consistency, with time, the growth becomes exponential. Habits work the same way. Reading just 10 pages a day may not seem like much, but over a year that becomes several books, and over a decade, it transforms your mind. Saving a small amount of money may feel trivial, but compounded across years, it creates financial stability. Exercising for 20 minutes daily may look modest, but compounded, it changes the body, the energy, the confidence. Compounding rewards the patient and punishes the impatient. Psychologically, this principle frees us from the trap of perfection. Too often, people quit because they cannot sustain extremes. But compounding teaches us that progress is not about doing everything at once. It is about doing something small, ordered, and consistent. The brain adapts far more to consistency than to intensity, and the accumulation of small victories creates a momentum that reshapes identity itself. Philosophically, compounding also reflects the law of integration. True success is not just about stacking habits side by side, but about weaving them together into a coherent system where each supports the other. For example, the habit of sleeping well fuels the habit of exercising. The habit of exercising strengthens focus for work. The habit of learning daily sharpens decision-making, which in turn protects priorities. The integration of habits is what creates resilience. It is not just the individual habits, but their synergy that builds a life of success. And here lies the deeper truth. Compounding is invisible at first. You will not always see results immediately. The temptation will be to stop, to declare that it is not working. But the turning point comes later, often after months or years, when the accumulated weight of all those small actions suddenly reveals itself in results so undeniable they seem overnight. Yet nothing is overnight, everything is compounded. So the question is not, what massive change can I make today? The question is, what small, meaningful habit can I integrate today, and tomorrow, and the day after? Because once aligned with clarity, protected by guardrails, prioritized with wisdom, and reinforced by identity, even the smallest habit compounds into extraordinary transformation. And this is the reflection worth holding on to. Success is not built in a moment, it is built in layers. Each habit you choose today is a brick, and over time, those bricks form a structure so powerful it becomes unshakable. Order them well, and compounding will do the rest.